Chug, 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 chug.
Good morning.
Good morning, my friends. Good morning, my friend. Welcome to the Ashes to Rubies live stream and podcast, where we talk a little bit about recovery and a lot about other stuff.
Sometimes we get on a roll.
I was thinking today, I look outside and I think to myself, go lay down.
That dog needs her nails cut.
That dog needs her nails cut, but that dog's nails she's 10 pounds, but that's the hardest nail cutting dog I've ever. Oh my goodness. My dad used to, we had a German Shepherd. They have big nails. My dad used to use side cutters.
I know, it's terrible.
We should use side cutters on that dog.
No.
I was thinking like this morning, and I used to be a landscaper, interlock, and we would look out, or sometimes we would kind of plan not to work in the morning because it would be a rain day.
And then it would be so sunny.
But like even today, I was like, I just hope it's not raining because I'm going rucking in the rain because I've already done that. And I was like, I don't know how to work out inside with the rucking. I haven't developed that part of my rucking experience. So I have a very set pattern, and I'm like, I just don't want to get I really don't want to get rained on today. And it wasn't raining. It was super muggy.
Really?
Yeah.
It wasn't raining when you went? It's supposed to, there's a very high chance of rain all day.
High chance. And then I was thinking that when I got in and I had already done my morning meditations, and I was like, I just finished the hardest part of my day. Like the rest of the day is a slip and slide. Whee!
That's a good feeling. You know what I learned?
When? Today?
No. Sometime in the recent past.
In the recent past, like yesterday?
Recent past. No.
The weekend? Was there a scenario?
Recently, I learned that the forecast, when it says 70% chance of rain, that means that there's a chance of rain in 70% of your area today.
No, it doesn't mean that there's...
That's what I read. That's what that means.
Okay, I'm not really sure.
It doesn't mean that there's a 70% chance of rain. It means that there's a chance of rain in 70% of your area. That's what I heard.
You know what
that means.
You know what else I learned recently? Not like I don't want to top what you've learned.
Is it related?
No, but it's something that I learned. So it's mildly related. So you know when you're on the highway and you see Toronto in 455 kilometers, do you know where the 450 kilometers is being measured on every sign?
From the outskirts.
No.
Oh.
City Hall.
No.
City Hall. So when you see a sign, Ottawa in 304 kilometers, they've measured from there to City Hall. Every sign is City Hall.
No way.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, why are they making these weird numbers? Like,
that is what we have for you today.
No, what have you learned? What have you learned that you were this year old when you're like, I never knew that.
I didn't know that. Please post it in the chat.
Yeah, do that.
Oh
man,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, City Hall. That's where all the every city.
You're not always going downtown. I thought it was like to the outskirts, and I'm always like, oh, it's so far because
right downtown.
Especially when we're coming back into Ottawa from like the west end from Toronto.
Yeah.
And we live in the far east end, and so not only I always thought it was from the outskirts, and so we have to still drive all the way. I won't call it the far east.
I would call it the wild east. Orleans.
So maybe that'll make me feel better next time.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Stuff we've learned. Has anybody else learned anything worthwhile to commentate on?
If you're listening on the podcast, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram, and you can post what you've learned because they can't comment.
No.
If you're on a podcast, I don't know if
there's any
podcast channels that you can post in.
No,
not where I listen to podcasts.
You can just talk to the radio or whatever.
Yeah. When a family situation becomes really desperate and we think we just can't go on another day living in uncertainty, fear, deprivation, and general misery, we may decide to take action. That's good. But what action? So much depends on taking the right course. Let me consider. Is my present frame of mind, whether of anger, bitterness, or confusion, one in which I can make a wise choice? Have I yielded too readily to friendly advice, well meant, but based on only limited knowledge of all the factors? Today's reminder: if I have come to the end of my rope, I have lived in this turmoil for a long time. Let me be patient a little longer while I weigh the alternatives. Will a radical change really work out better for me, for my children, and yes, for my spouse? Before I make a decision or take a step, I will redouble my efforts to apply what I've learned in the fellowship. It could bring me to an entirely different, more constructive solution than the drastic ones I was considering. Make sure that the medicine you decide on in a rash and desperate moment doesn't turn out to be worse than the malady.
This is a loaded one.
It's loaded. It really is.
Because
loaded.
there are people in this active situation. So I think there's two contexts. One is active addiction, and it's specifically talking to the spouse of the alcoholic or addict, or the child of, or the parent of.
Okay.
And then what I think it's saying is, can I reflect and go, am I emotionally sober in this environment? And then how would I attain that in a non-reactionary way? So like, I could hate mess and get rid of all of my household belongings, because typically that's what some of us, when we're reactionary and not responsive and unaware of how I'm feeling emotionally, then I just clear out the house. I have a house sale and I just put it all on the curb. All right, I got rid of the clutter.
I was chuckling because how many parents say that to their kids? I'm going to throw out all your toys if you don't clean them up.
We had sort outs in little yellow buckets. We had to paint them ourselves. I think that's the one context of like, how do I be emotionally sober in this environment? And then it says, before you make any sudden knee-jerk reactions, or the straw that broke the camel's back, you don't want to get there, continue to try again. And I was reminded of a parable that Jesus shared about the fig tree. And we were talking about this last night. So the owner of the vineyard, or the orchard, said to the greenskeeper, I have the wrong terminology, we're throwing in golf acknowledgments here. The greenskeeper. And it was 3 years that this fruit, that there was no figs on this tree. And he said, tear it down. Like, let's just get rid of this. It's taking up room. It's taking up valuable space. And then the greenskeeper said, let it go one more year. I'm going to dig up the roots. I'm going to massage them. I'm going to put fertilizer and give it one more chance. And I think that's what I'm hearing in this is like, don't do knee-jerk reactions and just pull out the tree root, like, clear out the house. But it's like, how can I continue to live and thrive and nurture what's going on in the house?
Well, we definitely have to be directed by God, or
Ultimately,
not knee-jerk reactions, and not by helpful people that love us and have the best of intentions, but like it said, don't necessarily have full understanding of all the factors, or maybe a full understanding of addiction, or maybe full understanding of, there's lots of concepts that people love us and they mean well, but they're not in our shoes and they don't have all the.
And it's horrible to get outside advice because everybody has different opinions without knowing all the facts. And I think that it's good to share our experience, because if you looked at us and you just shared the end, you'd be like, oh, you got to move out. Right. But you didn't move out until we got to a certain point, and there was no way that I could function without any supportive care. And I was left to my own demise, which actually got me into where I needed to go. And God could start directing my path that way. And so that's not always the answer.
And there was a few additional factors that came into play that actually brought me to that decision. And it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. Like, it, I took some time and
years
planned it out. And like, even after I had sufficient belief and that this is what I needed to do.
Because you came to the understanding that I am beyond human aid. Nothing will change unless he dies. Like that's really where I was headed.
I became convinced that actually you were going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually became convinced that we weren't safe.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that was true or not, I became convinced that we were not safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the tricky thing about giving advice is we can't know how the other person will react. I don't know someone's situation. And so how you reacted is very different from how somebody else might react. So I'm never going to go to another woman and say that she needs to do what I did, because her significant other might have a completely different reaction than you did.
Because the reality of what you did is you actually put in an extra 3 years or 2 or 5 years.
Yeah. And I wouldn't recommend,
hey, honey, stay around another 4 years.
Or to do
just to see what's going to happen.
Or to do what I did
at
the end either. Like, that could go sideways for anybody. Like,
but then bring it into today's context. I think I want to remain emotionally sober on a daily basis. So if I have people in my lives that are causing, spikes of adrenaline and causing chaos and how do I set up good boundaries with that? And I think it's going the second part of it. For me, there's the two contexts is how do I remain emotionally sober on a daily basis, surrounded by the people that I know that there's difficult people, but for the most part, do we set up boundaries and protect our emotional sobriety in certain aspects? And we have our fellowship, we have our friends, we have our family, but then how do we continue our emotional sobriety even in hard situations, whether we're married to them or not? Like what are tips that you use?
Well, I think having to get grounded every morning, like just start by stopping and pausing and pausing throughout the day. And I was explaining to someone yesterday how like the reason that I use the pause app is because actually this is a practice and a discipline that I'm trying to get in the habit of using, because when I wake up in the middle of the night obsessing about something, that's not the time to learn how to take every thought captive. Right? Because like trying to take my thoughts captive is a great concept, and it's a definitely, wisdom, but I can't just do that in the middle of the night when I'm obsessing about something. And so I actually have to learn how to take my thoughts captive on a regular basis, not when things are spinning out, So do I practice that daily? Is that a daily thing that I'm learning?
So then when you practice that and learn it, then you can apply it.
Then I can apply it in the middle of the night when it happens.
Or in the middle of the afternoon when you're watching a bike thieving ring and saving a drunk girl out of the middle of the road. All of those things. And then
I felt very calm, because that just happened.
What day is it? Tuesday.
We hope you have a great day, and thank you for joining us. We hope that this has given you something to reflect on, whatever your circumstances, or maybe you have a loved one who's going through hard times. And sometimes I think that even these little chats are helpful for people who don't have addiction directly in their life, but maybe know someone. And so maybe this would give you
we all know someone.
Thoughts or insights and empathy.
Keep the peace. Be of good behavior. We will see you tomorrow.
No one knows where that comes from. The judge says that to you.